Welcome to this Superversive SF live stream where we're going to be having a chat about our new anthology series, Planetary, and the first one that's just launched, Mercury, as well as how things went for Superversive SF in 2017, and we never stay on topic, so who knows where it'll go. Joining us today, we have April Freeman, who's been here before, Ben Wheeler, who's also been here before and is a Superversive regular, Ben Zvitsky from far away. Ben, like me, is not in America. Everyone else is. Corey McCleary, who has been on before. David Halquist, who is also been on before and is the editor of the Mercury Anthology. Oh, April is editing the Venus Anthology.
Along with Jaji.
I don't know what Ben's doing. Anyway, it's fine. We'll come back to him.
Listed as an editor on Mercury as well.
Yes, Ben also
Ben
has
Witzy is our line editor.
Anyway, continuing. We have John C. Wright joining us, who has a story in the Mercury Anthology, and El Jaji Lamplighter Wright is also with him, sharing the same microphone. They do everything.
I'll be right back.
Corey's running off apparently. Okay, Corey, thank you. We have John Della Rose, the first man banned from Worldcon who wasn't a pedophile. And
yeah, wow. Thanks for that intro, Jason. That's exactly how I've always wanted to be introduced.
Sorry about that. Well, you know, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to know what their standards are for banning people. Hispanics with the wrong politics, and they get a bigger ban than convicted pedophiles.
I'll note that the pedophile did not only received a day ban, from what I understand.
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not suggesting you're worse than him. I'm suggesting that they think you're worse than him says a lot about them. And Josh Young.
Gosh, it's been pretty nutty over here.
Anyway, it's all good. So, well, seeing as David is the editor of the Mercury Anthology, David, do you want to give us an overview of what it looks like and what people can expect if they open it up? And I will attempt to share my screen and show everyone the cover.
Planetary Anthology Mercury is a collection of 13 science fiction and fantasy stories about the planet Mercury, and also deals with things such as journeys and messengers. It has Dragon Award-winning author John C. Wright and a number of others. We've got tales of the fantastic, the wondrous, the macabre, and the hopeful all the way through it. It's really the first of an entire series known as the Planetary Anthology. Next is going to be Venus. We're going to go through all the planets, including the sun and the moon.
There's a very, very pretty
may not be planets. And Pluto is going to be featured, and we don't care that Pluto has been demoted to dwarf planet. It is still going to get a book of its own.
Pluto's a planet.
It's like
So, and there's the very lovely cover done by Lee Madison. You can expect him to be doing, well, hope everyone likes the cover because he's doing all of them.
Yeah.
And that's roughly the cover.
Michael, pick up what you said.
In answer to an earlier question,
It'll pick you up.
I'm talking to it. In answer to an earlier question, Ben with a Z was one of the co-editors on Mercury, but Ben with a W is editing Sun.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
The Sun Anthology. If he's actually editing the Sun, then we're all going to die.
You know what? I've been thinking if we get a little bit of a redder tinge, Reds in season this year.
Oh, and one thing that will happen, I know the anthologies aren't coming out in the order of the planets, but we're not putting numbers on the side of them. We're just putting logos for each planet on the spine and like an arc for the sun with some, you know. So you'll be able to line them up from sun out to Pluto in order. Wait, I don't know if that will break OCD people's brains because it'll be in the wrong, it won't be in the order they came out, but it'll be in the order of the planets.
The only problem is we're not going to have, Jupiter's not going to be 10 times the size of Earth, and Earth isn't 4 times the size of Mercury, so...
If you want, I can write a short story that's that big.
Sure.
I can too.
But it would be hard on the wallets of the people who wanted to buy the physical version if we made Jupiter 4 times as big as
Yeah,
it.
I don't think
So
we can
the way to
do the
cure that-
planet, the books as the size of the planets. That might be a little bit much.
We'll just stick with the order.
Also, the sun would be too large.
The way to cure that, of course, is to make additional anthologies for Io, Europa, Ganymede.
Plus, since they're not numbered, we can stick in like other anthologies for like Ceres and
This is
Maka
true.
Maka.
So
and all the other ones.
if it really takes off, we can go nuts.
Yeah.
I've already developed my my short story for Comet Kahutek.
Well, I
I
think
can have dibs on editing Maka Maka.
actually, if this turns out to be a fantastic success, we could hit constellations next.
Ooh.
Ooh, do it like a Zodiac theme one.
We could
That'd be
just do
cool.
all the moons of Jupiter.
Well, I mean, by the time we're done with moons and comets and Eris, you know, we have a long way to go. The supposed equal planet Nemesis.
Exoplanets.
By the time we're done
or
with
what?
I was gonna say, by the time we're done with all the planets, we'll be ready to do the next volume of MAGA after Trump's re-election.
Yeah.
I'm looking
Look,
forward
if we're
to
doing all the planets, I call Kepler 62e. Look, it might be 1,200 light years away, but it's still a planet. It's still probably there.
Oh, we haven't. You're right. You're right. We're talking about exoplanets next. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Well, for right now, we have the solar system, but it just shows that there's lots of possibility out there in years to come if, you know, people should find that they like them.
Can you guys still hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Just check out.
I can, since we're talking about planetary, I can give a little more detail of what you can expect from the planetary stuff as a whole.
Sure, particularly as you're the nut that's writing one story for every volume.
Yes. So, yeah, I came up with this crazy idea where all the stories will be standalone, but I have a 3,000-year timeline. As well
sorry,
as
April,
a family.
Sorry,
Yes.
1 second. I'm going to open the chat window and keep an eye on it. So if you got questions for anyone, stick them in the chat, and I will pass them on. And I apologize if we get horrible echo.
So, planetary.
Okay, then.
You good?
I'll just ignore me. I'll mute myself.
Okay. So the planetary will, when we first started it, I thought it was a lot of fun. Each planet will have stories based off of the theme of the planet or the god that the planet is named after. And so the themes like Jupiter will have power and authority. Venus is love stories, which Venus is now in the final stages of editing and it's turning out very well. It'll be coming out next month. So we have all these anthologies lined up. We're working to have one come out each month. And they all have different themes. There'll be sci-fi, fantasy, touching on theme of the planet itself, the gods, stuff like that. And my crazy project has been writing a story for each of them that references each other, and it's in the same universe. And I have one family line, first American in space, Alan Shepard, and I have another family line, the descendants of the first Russian in space, Aryan. And I basically, the first story that I'm working, the first story in my timeline, which is Earth, I'm working on right now where I have the grandchildren of those two fighting. So it's kind of like taking the Great Space Race and extending it 3,000 years. Lots of stuff happens and it's going to be crazy. I have a lot of notes and things, and something that happens on Neptune will eventually help someone, one of the great grandchildren on Mercury later. So if you read the Mercury story that just came out, there's something in there that will reference to another story that I'm going to write at some point for the Neptune anthology. So that's kind of my crazy thing. So another reason to pick up all of the anthology books is to catch all the Easter eggs and just have a lot of fun and see new authors and the different stories and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my 2 cents. That's the Planetary Anthology. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. You'll love it.
I think April did a nice job of coming up with stories that are quite independent, that very gently interlace with each other. So nobody picking up one anthology will necessarily know that they're missing part of the story, but anybody reading all of them will appreciate it.
Okay. Oh, and we're out.
You could almost say that the anthology is stellar. I'm sorry.
Well, that'd be
I'm sorry.
constellations.
Pierce would be proud of you.
And Mercury's now out in print as well. So as of like
Yes.
an hour or two ago. While I was
Drop
asleep.
that link.
You could almost say that the anthology is stellar. Wow, sorry.
No. Okay. Let's not do that pun every launch stream.
Yeah, we gotta
That's echo.
vary it up a bit.
Hey, Josh, you're getting some echo here.
The anthology is stellar. Wow.
There we go. Sorry.
It never ends.
That's all right.
Is it just the repeating loop?
I'm assuming
I'll hear it in my dreams.
I'm assuming Josh made the mistake I made of opening the YouTube thing so he could participate in the chat as well.
Yeah, on my good computer, I can pause it before it boots up, but not on the laptop, apparently.
No, that's all right. Hey, John Delarose, you said you had to take off. You couldn't stay around too long. Do you have a story in Mercury? I don't remember.
I don't. I didn't have time to write extra short stories with all of my commitments this year, unfortunately.
Fair enough. What do you have? What do you have coming up in Mars for us as well, which people can look forward to in March?
Cool.
As long as you
actually got a nice story. Yeah, so I've got a nice story by Chuck Dixon, which is hilarious. It's apology. I noticed when I started this, I got a lot of submission just set on Mars and didn't necessarily like have a war theme to it. But as it progressed and as everybody kind of came in, I kind of had to, unfortunately, I had to cut some nice stories because of the theme to it. But I also was short on God of War that just focused on that without the planet, the sort of stories. So I actually asked for a couple more of those in the last couple months, mainly because Chuck's story is so good. It wasn't others, but I wanted to make it fit. But I also got a nice story by Kevin J. Anderson.
Oh, wow.
Is Louis Antonelli in every volume?
Nice.
So far.
Lou's just prolific.
He's amazing. So yeah, he'll be in like every volume, which is pretty awesome because this is there's a lot of books. So he's doing great work.
Story by him.
Speaking of Lou Antonelli, we do also have a bundled collection of stories by him coming out for Easter.
Oh, fantastic!
Cool.
He's
If
a
I
great
might add,
writer.
we have 3 Easter books coming out. 2 of them are collections of stories, but one of them is a themed collection of short stories around the same idea, and one's Lou's, and then there's also a novel, and they all have kind of a Christian-friendly, kind of appropriate for Easter mood to them, but very different and very interesting. So I'm really excited about some of these new things. 2 of them are brand new authors that we're gonna launch.
Yep. We also have John Delarosa's new The Stars Entwined coming out as soon as he gives me all the bits and I sit down and put it together.
We're still doing some proofreading on that.
That's all right.
And then
as a
developer, I'm going to develop a robust marketing plan because I'm really.
Excellent.
How do I talk about this?
Isn't your marketing plan basically
Robust.
just to get disinvited and banned from things and then get in the news? Because it's working.
No, I've got a much bigger marketing plan and I'm working on it, and it's going to be a timing. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're up.
As long as there's no genocide involved, I think it'll be okay. But that'll get in the news.
We're upping our game this year, so all around.
As long as we're mentioning new product things we have coming out, we also have a book coming out very beginning of February called The Broken Man, which is a
I saw the cover for that.
Ancient Irish fantasy, and by a new author we haven't hopefully we'll have other things coming out by this year too. And he's really excellent in his writing style. And
Yeah, it sounds really cool,
Keep
Jackie.
talking. I'll grab the cover and I'll put that up.
Yeah, it's very cool.
My
So,
fiance's
uh,
here. I'm gonna go real quick.
Hang on, and there's the cover for the Broken Man.
Yep.
Ooh.
Very cool.
Hang on, present to everyone. There we go.
Golden Age
About
Robert
Hawk
Howard
books,
kind of
and
stuff.
we may have just picked up a couple more of them, so I'm hoping that he'll be with us for some time.
Yes, that Hawking's Austin.
Makes me
nice
think of Conan and all that kind of thing.
Yes,
Like the real Conan.
Whoops.
It isn't a bit. It takes place in a kind of a mythical ancient Ireland, as if the different mythical races of the Irish mythology, like the Fomor and the Bolg and the Theobald, or the
Bucklelands.
no, the
Midians.
Dane and those guys, all were kind of historical, but they had a little more to them than we expect historical things to have. So it's kind of a mixture of just a straight out historical and a fantasy, and I think he did a good job with it.
Okay. Let's see. How about telling us a little bit about what's coming up with Planetary Venus, which is the next one up? We've only heard a tiny bit, or she just left.
I can do that because I'm the other.
Fantastic.
On that. We'll let her say something when she comes
Be right back.
This just went off to the. Sorry, John keeps telling me the mic will hear me. Venus just went off to the to Jason this week, and it has 20 stories in it. And like John Del Rose, we did have to reject a few because they just had romance and no fantasy. And after we got going, we felt that wasn't working. But we have stories about the planet. We have stories about the goddess. We have one story that has the planet and the goddess in it. And we also have some just straight out fantasy romance stories that don't necessarily have Venus or the goddess, but they have romance and love. And we have one or two that have a different type of love. It's not romantic love. It's love at a higher, purer level that are really beautiful. So I was really pleased with the stories that we got, and we have quite a variety of moods. And what we did was we sprinkled them around. We got like 4 or 5 funny shorter pieces. So we kind of rotated between the longer pieces, and every 3rd or 4th story is a shorter, funnier piece.
Oh, nice. And Ken, our friend with the glorious red beard, is looking forward to the story.
Excellent.
Plus, you got at least one story with Lovecraftian cultists and human sacrifice.
Yes, and Josh gave us a story that's closest to the old planetary romance style. Like, think of a kind of a Lovecraft crosses John Carter type thing, which I thought was a great addition because we would have
Take my money now.
We would have been lost without that kind of story. I think I was delighted to have it.
My original goal was to do what April did and try to get a story in each one, but I have a baby in the house and not a lot of time to write anymore. So right now I just have Mercury and Venus, and my Venus story is a follow-up to the Mercury story.
That happened to me too. I originally was going to do a whole bunch of stories, and I just haven't had enough time to get them all. I hope to do a couple more. But I was really surprised when the stories that I submitted to Venus and Mars turned out to be prosperous stories, which was not what I was intending to write. But in both times, that was what I came up with. I managed for Mercury to get a reference to the planet, the god, and the alchemical idea, and the substance Mercury all into the same story. So I was kind of
and trickery.
Yes, and trickery.
There's quite a bit of mischief in Jaji's story.
So there's another one who got the substance in it too.
Yep.
I got that in mind.
2 with the actual element in it. Because when you've got a planet and an element, why not have both?
I'm actually pretty proud to be the palate cleanser between John C. Wright and Jaji Wright. It feels good. It's just be stuck between there. It's like, wonderful.
Thank you. Well, I look forward to reading the other stories for Mercury, which I haven't had a chance to read yet. It's really exciting that it's out, because we've been talking about this for so long, and carefully, each editor planning what they're doing and everybody trying to get this lined up. And so to have one actually come out is just such a you know, it in and of itself is just a wonderful achievement for us, and hopefully other people will love it too.
Yes, let's hope so. JD Beckwith is on the chat and also mentioned that he's got, I don't know if he'll have a story in every anthology, but he's got a story in at least, he's got related stories in a few of them so far.
Sorry, who did you say?
JD Beckwith?
Oh, yes, we have a nice story by him too in Venus. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
And in Earth too, and so we'll see. Which is exciting.
Yes. So can we hear a little bit more about the specific stories for Mercury? Is there anyone here who has one that hasn't said anything about it yet?
Me.
I do.
You guys want to tell us a little bit, just, a few words about it?
Yes.
Please, go ahead.
Someone's
me?
Yeah,
Oh, dear.
go for it.
Corey, go for it.
Well, there's a bit of a long story to where the world building and stuff for this story came from, which was I was involved in some like online chat role playing groups, and a friend of mine and I decided to try our hand at building one based off of a genre of film that I happen to like and my friend happened to like, which was wuxia. I might be mispronouncing that, but so I was doing lots of research into the cultures of ancient China and ancient Japan and Korea and other countries in the Far East, and building up this world. And then part of what started happening when I started thinking I could write some books in this world was I started reading Game of Thrones stuff, and I was also binging on movies like House of Flying Daggers, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So naturally, my crazed brain thought, do you know what Westeros needs? It needs more ninjas. It would be much more interesting if the Lannisters were actually a secret clan of ninjas fighting the Starks, who might have been a clan of samurai. Who knows? That would be kind of interesting. But needless to say, the giant door stoppers that is the Song of Ice and Fire set in Japan didn't come out. However, I did write a story called The Tower of the Luminous Sages, which is about a thief named Wei who sneaks into the Tower of the Luminous Sages. Yeah, someone's echoing with me, but the basic premise of the Tower of the Luminous Sages is she goes in thinking there's treasure in this tower, which is a lighthouse in the middle of a giant imperial palace, except turns out the treasure in there is deadly dangerous, and somehow upon seeing it, her friend is slain. She survives, and well, I don't want to give any more away, but it involves Mercury, the element. It involves dragons. It involves an evil coup attempt, magic, all sorts of crazy stuff.
Sounds good.
We have a.
Let me have a turn, because I also put in a story for the anthology where.
Wait, before you, Mr. Wright, before you do that, I'm about to sign off, but Pierce is here and he'd like to say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody. Put a story in the anthology.
Hey, Pierce.
Hey, Pierce.
Did Pierce put a story in the anthology?
No, but he's my fiance, so we can be here.
How do you do?
Pierce, are you coming to DragonCon this year?
I have no idea if my training schedule is going to allow it, but if I can, it'd be fun.
Cool, fair enough.
But it
that's
might fall right
understandable.
around my end of training, so.
No, that's fine. Well, if you can't make it, April, are you coming to DragonCon?
I'm only gonna go if he goes.
I'm not going anywhere without Pierce.
I'm already going.
Close that even if she doesn't come to the con, we can visit with her or have her meet us for a meal or something. We can get together with her even if she doesn't want to pay to be there.
Pierce might do one for the Moon.
Anyway, sorry, that's completely off topic, so I'll shut up now. John, you wanted to say, hello, Pierce. Nice to chat with you. John, you were going to say something.
Okay, well, we're going to go. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Yes, John, by all means, tell us about yours.
See, it's not like losing a fellow contributor. It's like gaining a fan. Sorry, I have a vested interest in the Pierce Friedman alliance working out because they met because they're both fans of mine. So actually, I'm like the Yenta here. I'm like the matchmaker between them.
So we're very delighted with their.
I just said that, doll. So, but I don't express my delight because I'm a curmudgeon. So, like the last story that was about the Luminous Tower, I decided I had to write a story about Mercury involving a tower. See, because that was the I think was the overriding theme. The most fun part for me, and when I say fun, I mean hair-raisingly annoying, was trying to make sure I decided to write, for some reason, a time travel story for Mercury, not for Saturn, because that would have made sense. So I write this time travel story for Mercury, but I have to coordinate the Mercury calendar with the Earth calendar so that my time traveler, I can tell when and where she's showing up and when she's meeting herself and arguing with herself about herself, because time stories are so much fun. So Mercury has its year is longer than its day. It has a day once every 2 years, but the year's only 88 Earth days long. Okay, so you'd have spring, summer, winter, and fall to the degree you'd have them, because Mercury has it doesn't have much of an axle tilt. You'd have that every 8 days, and then you'd have a day of, and then a night of all 4 seasons. Okay, so I sat here with my handy dandy little calculator, making sure, and I probably made a mistake because I'm terrible at number crunching. Making sure every time my time traveler bounced backward and forward, I would know where the sun was in the sky, because the sun is 4 times or 5 times bigger seen from the surface of Mercury than it is here on our little planet. So, my original concept for the story was based on a Stargate episode, where in Stargate, one of the characters turns to the others and says, "This can't be unusual," and the other guy reminds him of, "What about the time when you were turned into a robot, or the time we were both artificially aged into old men, or the time when we were replaced from a parallel dimension, or the time when we were cavemen?" And I said, I'd like to write a story just about a team, like a superhero action team, just composed of a guy who's had Stargate type stuff happen to them. Okay? So originally the story was just a girl and her Stargate, but it turned into a time machine against my will, and it's turned into a thoughtful meditation about a woman's place in the universe, the nature of matrimony and marriage and forgiveness and divinity, and it got away from me. But the idea is still open for anyone to use. The team that consists of nothing but a guy, and a guy.
The robot guy.
The robot version of himself.
Guy,
the angel version, the devil version, the parallel timeline version where you're a Nazi.
Girl.
Yeah. So, and this story is kind of my version of my answer to Robert Heinlein's "All You Zombies Are by His Bootstraps" or something.
Yeah.
Since April has left, I will mention her story. The Star of Mercury is about really parenthood, which, since she's now starting a family, is kind of vital there, and what parents will do for someone they care about, and the extent of it, and the troubles and difficulties of a family. Basically, everything else is happening there too, but that's the central part. And of course, I'm not going to mention what the Star of Mercury actually ends up being in there. And I put in a small piece at the end, and basically I just went to the physical anomalies of Mercury. It's a bizarre planet, little planet. It has a 2-3 rotational lock with the sun. It has a resonance in orbit with Venus. One side of it is the whole thing has been hammered relentlessly at some point in its distant past, and it's mostly iron. It seems to be missing a core and a crust and a mantle. So I had fun with that. So we've got everything from hard sci-fi to the most outrageous fantasy.
Should I talk about? Yeah.
Oh,
Fantastic.
please.
Hang on. We did have a. Oh, sorry. We did have a quick question from the chat.
Yes.
When is the next Moth and Cobweb out, John?
The next
right?
Cobweb should be. I haven't started it yet. The next one's called Mad Scientist Apprentice. Excuse me, Mad Scientist Intern. Right now, I'm working on a book called No Wither, which is a sequel to my Dragon Award-winning, thank you very much, Some Wither book. And I'm trying to crank out 1 or 2 novels of that before I return to the exciting adventures of the Moth and Cobweb series. But it should be my plan right now at the moment is to start work on that this summer. Excuse me, I should say this spring actually, and try to get it out by the fall.
Cool.
So.
I wanted to make one brief comment about what I said earlier, which is it occurs to me when I say a prosperous story that not everybody knows what that means. I have a series called Prosperous Children, which is a sequel to Shakespeare's Tempest, and easy collection of characters as the younger brothers and sisters of Miranda that I borrowed from John, who had made them up. And this series has recently been reissued from Wordfire publication. These stories for Mercury and Venus star the characters who appear in that series.
Which is very entertaining.
That's how I met April. She loves this series. It's her favorite series in the world. So she wrote me a fan letter when she was 15. And we've been friends ever since.
That seems to be working out.
Yeah. David, are there any stories in Mercury by someone who's not here that you could describe really briefly?
Well, Josh has a story in Mercury if he wants to chat about that one.
Yep, Josh and Ben, both.
Yes. I saw their names in the table of contents.
Yes. You want to go first and then I can go, or?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Or I will go.
I thought you were saying, do you want to go first? I go. I tossed it to you.
Someone talk.
Yeah, quickly.
Now we're having the other issue. No one's interrupting each other. No one's talking.
No one's talking. That's the other issue.
All
right.
Only Josh. You start.
Josh, tell us about your story.
Silence.
So, my story is it's kind of been, oh man, it's eventually what condensed out of like 3 different stories. Elements of it were originally going to be set in a sequel to Domo, which I published in the first Sci-Fi Journal issue.
Oh, nice.
And then other elements like just like what I would have done with extra seasons of Firefly, I would add like a good old boy who was an Aristotelian philosopher, and that particular element didn't make it through it, but that character that was originally like my Southern Aristotelian eventually became the hero of Mercury. But so basically he's a mercenary that's called in to investigate hauntings in these mines on Mercury, and miners have gone missing and just weird stuff going on. And I wrote it at a time when I was playing a lot of Destiny, which kind of has a very old sort of feel to its solar system. Like Venus is all swampy and Mars is breathable atmosphere and desert and everything. And watching a lot of old Star Trek and reading C.L. Moore. So those sorts of things gave me a chance to kind of be a little more pulpy than I usually am. So that's The Haunted Mines of Mercury.
Cool. Well, we have Lou Antonelli has just joined us.
Excellent.
How you doing, Lou?
Lou, can you tell us the story about your Earth story acceptance? That's hilarious. There.
Lou?
He's gonna message us. Maybe his mic.
Lou's going to message and we will relay the messages.
Fair
I
enough.
just read that Lou sat down to write a story. I forget the time, about 8:30, and by 9:58, the story was done and had been accepted by Dawn for the Earth Anthology. He says that's a new goal.
Wow.
Yeah, Lou says that he has a cold and is not talking very well, so maybe he can type something and Jason can read it for us.
That'll be fine. I can do that. So, Ben, tell us about one of the Bens. Tell us about your story.
Well, I wrote Schubert to Rachmaninoff. It's kind of a harder, pulpier affair than than some of the other ones that seem to be. It's about a motorcycle courier on Mercury. They're still colonizing it, mining it out, that sort of thing, and a solar flare knocks out the satellites. And while that's happening, these inhabitants of Mercury called dingbats, which eat everything and anyone, attack one of the relay stations if the satellites ever go down. And so they can't get the mining contracts, to the place where they need to go to get the sign off from another mining consortium. So our protagonist has to go from the Schubert station to the Rachmaninoff station, since all the craters are named after composers, as I understand it. And evade dingbats and fight his way through solar flare interference and a giant meteor strike, as well as other more horrible and nameless things unknown to science. Though quite terrifying. I had some fun with the retrograde aspect of Mercury. Like it sort of moves a bit because it's going with the day, goes back a bit, goes forward. I don't know if that's like real science or maybe just me misinterpreting the Wikipedia article, but top tier research on this.
Yeah, well, that's a bit fiction.
It's fiction.
Sorry, what?
Retrograde motion is what happens when the planet you're standing on goes faster than an interior planet, so it seems to go back into the sky. Mercury doesn't stop spinning and then spin the other way for a few minutes and then spin forward again. That doesn't happen.
Oh,
still is an odd little planet. So.
Oh, it is. Well, it's too late, guys. I'm sorry it's out there. I ruined the hard sci-fi aspect of everything.
You've got a guy with a motorcycle like fighting space monsters on the surface of Mercury. I'm okay.
Oh yeah. Oh right. Oh, thank you, David. I was worried.
The genre is broad enough. And you can also have your spaceships make bank turns in space and have a parsec be a unit of time rather than distance. So you're fine.
Let's get a little way in, and then I will tell about our absent members.
Go ahead. Why is there dead silence?
I don't know. I'm happy to brag about Lou's story if you want, but I was.
Go ahead, because Lou can't talk.
He can certainly speak in if he wants to. Well, Lou's got this astonishing thing. A lot of people talk about the beginnings of Mercury when it's first beginning to be settled or being explored or all that kind of thing. Lou's story takes place after Mercury has been mined last call for ages, and it's like an old, those like old Detroit steel towns that are kind of like running down or something like that, or like an old mine that's been there forever. So it's kind of like that. It's Mercury near the end of a long and prosperous industrial life where it's been the powerhouse for the solar system. And it's kind of a tale of reminiscence and other things too. I don't want to spoil too much. But it was loaded with atmosphere. And so it was a great joy to read and include. There's a few others there. John, yours is not the only time travel story. Bokara Brumley's Ancestors Answer deals with time travel and family honor and samurai swords. Like, there's nothing about that that's not a good combination.
Samurai swords make everything better. Did they add ninjas?
If I might say just the line, Bokara is another person who's also in Venus, and she was writing like a short story a day or something. She had a project for herself the last month or so where she was doing just an amazing amount of writing, which is really impressive for a mom of quite a few kids who lives on a farm. And she has a series that's going to come out with us next year, I believe, of short novels. But she also seems to be one who's making it into a lot of the anthologies.
I can speak to that. Liz said, "I don't write hard SF. I'll call you ninjas and raise you cowboys."
I'll meet that bet because I have a cowboy in my novel that just came out last month called Count to Infinity. Starts a cowboy, and I have ninjas in Moth and Cobwebs, where I decided the only way to write a story set in modern New York with evil fairies and elves in it was to make one of the fairies a ninja fairy from Japan. So
I can't argue with that formula.
Speaking of Boca Brumley,
on the planet Mercury, which I think is really cool.
Mm.
Speaking of Boca and what Jaji was touching on, Boca is writing an 11-volume romance series for us that will be starting in November. Which should be fun. I don't understand romance at all. It makes no sense to me, but I like the pitch, so we're going to give it a go.
It's not even fantasy; it's just straight romance. Short,
it is
kind of inspiring books, and we're really looking forward to them. And she's going to try to put them out one a month for 11 months. So we're more power to her. We're excited about this.
Looking forward to it.
It should be. Well, I probably won't read them because romance isn't my bag, but I'm excited. It sounds like it'll be an interesting project. So
I'm looking forward to it.
So let me give a quick rundown here, the rest of them, since I'll have to sign off before we're all completely done. There's a few others to brag about. Declan Finn has a nice little story called Deceptive Appearances. It starts with a bar fight in a bar in a dome on Mercury, and then gets involved in sting operations, high stakes, interplanetary intrigue, and it basically you measure it in explosions per paragraph. So it's a nice action story that quickly goes through. We've got J.D. Beckwith with Quicksilver, and how the weird anomalies and gravitational position of Mercury helped lead to the breakthrough in FTL travel. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We've got, let's see,
MDNA.
I think we've got them all covered now.
You got Misha Burnett's story, MDNA.
Yes, MDNA. Yes, MDNA is a different kind of messenger. It's a genetic messenger. So this is a time when they need someone who can basically. Humanity is in a position where there's too few rather than too many people, and people with undamaged genomes are quite the rarity. So it deals with the person who's carrying that information from one person to another, and it also deals with the difficulties of romance and that sort of thing. People, I found it ironic as I was reading it, people are always seeking romance without continuation and seem to have little idea how horrific it would be if that was actually how the world worked. So it's people trying to bring back the human race in a terrible time. So these stories range from the most hopeful to very grim circumstances. We got it all.
Dawn Witzke's about the botanist on Mercury as well.
Don Witzke. Mercurius. I'm probably spelling that. The most ambitious terraforming project ever. How to terraform Mercury itself. And what extent will ambition bring someone to? It's also a fun little murder mystery at the same time. And let's see. Now I think I've got them all.
Yeah, that's all of them now.
It's a fantastic little collection.
Okay, I could say a little bit about the promo video I did, which took me about 40 hours of work.
That's a beautiful promo video.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you.
Slightly inspired by John's mention of the fact that the Flash is basically Mercury, the god. So I found a site that had some special effects of Flash style lightning. So I wanted to add those to Solar System fly through. so that it's a flash-type courier working all the different planets very rapidly. Because luckily, Lee Mason's beautiful artwork lended itself to that kind of story. So I was able to add that together. Some of the really frustrating parts of the animation was the revolving Mercury with the shadow, because I had no way of actually generating that shadow. And I had to do that by hand, basically.
Wow.
And it turned out pretty well overall, and I'm very, very happy with it. I wanted to give our contributors the feel that they're in a blockbuster movie and make them feel like they're really part of something big. So I hope I achieved that.
Use the Mercury theme from Holtz.
Yeah. I found a public domain recording of that by the American Air Force, U.S. Air Force, American Heritage of America Band. They did some recordings of Holtz, and because they're a government organization, they are automatically public domain. So
we should still put a big thank out for the U.S. Air Force on that.
Yeah, because if we ever get to Mercury, I'm sure the U.S. Air Force will be the ones to get us there, because NASA doesn't seem to want to go anywhere. Sorry, that's a conversation for another day.
They arrive there. There's some Marines suntanning themselves. What took you so long, guys?
Do we have any way of playing Ben's video in the live stream? I'm not sure we do, unfortunately.
I don't know. It's excellent.
From screen share.
But I will.
You just post it and link to it under the.
We'll post it on the same.
The post.
I will put a link. I will do that right now. Keep talking.
Anyway, I'm really excited about this whole project. The stories seem to have a lot of, really interesting and delight to them, and each anthology seems to be coming together, with quite a bit of interest and delight. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun for anybody who, jumps on board with the grabs that message that Ben has in his video there and accepts the challenge of reading the anthologies.
Yeah, because in an anthology, the writers are basically the stars. So I wanted to introduce you as like the stars of a grand production. So that was
very cool. And I should say that a majority of the Mercury writers are also in Venus. So there's definitely going to be some continuity of writers between anthologies. And I think that will be fun for readers. I remember when I was quite young and I used to read anthologies to find new writers and see what was out there. I was always, pleased to come upon, I recognize that character, or, kind of gives you it helps tie them together in a gentle way without being too heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally there's things like Josh's story where it's the same character in two different planets, which is also
yeah. I was going to wrap up his story in Mars, or at least this arc of his story, and I wasn't able to make it in under the Mars cutoff. So now I'm kind of reworking that, and maybe Pluto or something else.
You could both Jupiter and Saturn have enough moons that you could probably pick one of them if you have time to get it in by then.
Titan, man, Titan.
Well, that's one of the neat things about Jupiter and Saturn, because I was talking with April about her stories for that, for Jupiter. I'm like, well, you can try to figure out how someone could actually live on Jupiter, or there's all these moons, so you have a lot of, variety for what you might do, where you might put your story if you want to have a story set in around Jupiter.
Yeah, there's a very good series of videos about colonizing the solar system where like Isaac Arthur, I think it is, who
they're
makes
amazing.
The Jupiter is basically its own self-contained solar system. With all its moons.
The planet gives us more heat than it takes in.
Lou says he's in all the inner planets. He's in Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. So he's one of those. Well, he and April will be helping tie it all together.
If he doesn't submit something from the Moon Anthology.
He says, I'll get back to you in an hour with a story for the Sun.
That's the spirit.
Yes.
The Sun is actually at the moment, so the orders may change, but it's towards the end of our arc. But Ben very, nobly stepped up to edit it, and I was very grateful for that. I'm excited about the Sun, kind of heroic, and yeah. So the Sun is, was it heroism? Is that what we said? The Sun and the Moon is dreams and madness.
Yeah, so like I'm sort of like doing it like sort of heroism, power, nobility, rulership, that sort of thing. Not in like the Jupiter way, but like domination way. I'm not sure. I haven't done enough research into all the nooks and crannies of. Oh dear, I've forgotten what it means to take future from the stars.
Astrology.
Astrology. Thank you. Astrological interest stuff.
Astrology are the bad guys in my current novel.
There's a question about the other anthologies that are coming up. Dawn Witzke is the editor for Earth. John Delarose is the editor for Mars, which I think is closed and moving forward now, but he can correct me if I'm wrong about that. Jupiter is Julie Pascal. Saturn is Anthony Marchetta and his sister. Neptune is David Kuhlbeck, I believe. Uranus is Everett Foster, I think. Pluto is Dawn again and another gentleman who's Richard, whose last name I don't know how to pronounce, but it starts with P. Maybe somebody else knows.
Payanelli? Yeah, I think that's it.
I could be misspelled. And then Declan and I are the Moon and Ben Wheeler's Sun. I think I hit them all there. If I forgot a planet, let me know.
Well, so it's funny for the Moon thing where we were both like, we're kind of in different circles, even though we connect on these sort of live streams all the time. We're like, I had been going around saying I've been doing the Moon, and then like you were thinking you were doing the Moon, and it's like,
that was our one real kind of a trip up, is when we discovered we had two entire different editors going for Moon, and Declan had already reached out to a lot of authors. So we talked about, several options, and Ben really nobly said, "Oh, I'll do Sun." So that really solved our hiccup there, and we have a nice solid list now for.
Yeah. What a hiccup! It lasted all of 5 minutes. It really derailed everything.
I suppose
Well, it could have been a hiccup, but you hadn't been very gracious about it. So
that
I'm
was
very
the
grateful.
we had.
I suppose I should know the answer to this, but are there submission links on the website at superversivesf.com?
I think so. I think there's a spot where you can submit things up on top.
Oh, no, but I meant for like to contact
you guys
people.
You guys talk among yourself. I'll go check it out and come back and give a report.
That's all right.
We have a new website now, and everything's a little new and different.
Yes, the website's had a bit of a facelift for the new year, which has been on the cards to do for about a year and a half, but we finally got around to doing it. Well, I say we. Dawn did it. Dawn did a lot of it. So,
did all the work.
But yes, I think it's come up quite well.
There's a whole section on the gray menu for calls for submissions with particular articles where people can pull up and read for the different editors are putting out that they're ready for stories.
Apparently the list is incomplete, so we'll get that updated in the next day or so of a list of who the editors are, how you contact them, and what the themes are. What's the theme for Uranus, by the way?
Creation and beginnings.
Creation and beginnings. There we go.
Yeah. Yep. I was trying to work out a story for that one yesterday. Didn't manage to succeed, but I was trying to do the new beginning thing.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to go help my wife with the baby here. So she's gracious.
Godspeed.
Fair enough, Josh.
Thanks
for
coming.
I will talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Fantastic.
Oh,
are you? Out of curiosity, Jaji, are the Moon Anthology? You're taking submissions for that already, or is it still you're working on Venus too much?
I'm not exactly sure. What whether we're officially open yet. If somebody had something, obviously they could send it along. But I don't think we've officially announced we're open. we did contact some,
For the moon.
particular people initially to get started, and I think we might have actually opened officially. I'll have to post about. I'll put up a little post on the same section where Dawn has these, since I don't know. Sorry, I was busy. I mean, we just got Venus off this week, so I've kind of been concentrating on Venus, and I was putting the moon off until Venus was done. So that's why I'm not as up on it as I would otherwise be. But I will confirm with my with Declan, and we will try to get something more official worked out and let people know about it.
Lou Antonelli asks, if a werewolf was on the moon, does he change when the Earth rises? I hate to break it to you, Lou. The Earth does not rise or set on the moon. Only the sun rises or sets because the moon is tide locked to the Earth.
Well, what if he walks around the moon? Does he turn into something as he moves away or from the moon?
If you find a set of footprints on the moon that are wolf prints for a while and then turn into footprints, naked footprints, the guy probably needs a spacesuit. Now, Mike, those of you who
I think at that point, lycanthropy is the least of his problems.
Lou does point out very reasonably.
With facts.
Now, let me tell you about not being confused with facts. On the famous black and white movie Catwoman of the Moon, there is a scene where the astronauts want to check whether or not they're on the bright side or the dark side of the moon. Since they forgot that the dark side of the moon is called dark side is merely the side that faces away from the Earth, and they do have a sunrise and a sunset once every 2 weeks on the moon. So they throw a match out through the cave across the Terminator to see if the sun is out, and it will ignite the match. Now, what is wrong with that picture scientifically?
No oxygen.
There's no oxygen, but see, that made me want to write a story about a paratrooper on the moon. A guy who leaps out of a low-hanging spaceship and opens up his parachute and then realizes he's going to die.
You realize the real problem is they wouldn't allow smoking on the ship. Pure oxygen environment. There's just no way.
Are you going to argue with a TerraWolf? I mean, a guy who turns into a wolf as soon as he's exposed to the light of the Earth. I mean, come on.
I mean, that's totally different then.
They're an oppressed minority.
The TerraWolves who are stuck on Earth, and they can't turn back because they can't get back to the far side of the moon where they're a human being.
Every time they want to build a spaceship, they can't build it in time before they turn into werewolves and crush it all. It's just a horrible situation.
Lou just asked about the Terminator on the moon with a capital T. I'd like to see that.
You're not wrong. Well, and then you get like vampires in space, and they have to get into a planetary shadow because unless they're out of the the actual cone in the true umbra of a planetary shadow, they're just done.
John wrote a short story once on that very topic, kind of in reverse, where the vampires try to escape to get into the night of space, and that doesn't work out so well.
Yeah, the vampire was scientifically literate.
I don't think anybody ever printed that. I'd go submit that to one of these.
The Earth Anthology?
The Earth Anthology, yeah.
So what's the astrological theme of the Earth Anthology? Is it all earthy humor with
adventure?
With bathroom jokes, or how does that work out?
It's all dirt based.
Fertility, dirt,
adventure, and daring. Am I not coming through?
For Earth?
Yep.
For Earth.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to hear me.
Sorry, that was something else we should announce. We have David Halquist, who's Mercury's editor. He's got a series of books coming out, starting with Hard Moon later this year.
Mm-hmm.
Hard Moon's ready to go, but I said to him, write all 3 of them so we can release them in, get them all written so we can release them one after the other, and people aren't hanging around for a year waiting for the next volume.
Excellent. Yep. Well, that's very exciting.
Plenty of action and adventure on the moon there.
I need to get together with with Corey's dad to record a song for that because I have it all written.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
We have to make sure the new website has a page where we have all of Ben's cool videos in one spot so people can come check them out.
Yeah. The earlier ones are not quite so cool.
Well,
I think
I'm getting
taken the challenge is actually going to write his novel in the chat.
I hope you got your things together. Hope you're quite prepared to
Hope
die.
you're quite prepared to die. It's like waiting for nasty weather. One eye is taken for an eye. Don't go out tonight.
But so are we? Because I know April mentioned it a bit. We're talking about the future of what's going to happen this year for Superversive SF.
Yep.
We have.
Well, I'm working on something while I'm editing up Fever Blood, which good of the edits because I wrote too much.
It's a door stopper, but more valuable.
Yeah, I'm cutting a bunch of them.
But he's trying to get it down to door stopper size.
No, it is door stopper.
So you could build a house with it, like bricks.
Yeah, it's like a solid podium, and he's working down the door stopper.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
I think
song.
I finished a novel just at the end of last year, around New Year's actually, and I submitted that, which is going through the reading phase. It's a fantasy novel about some kids trying to get their dad back from fairies, and it's
cool.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Well, while I'm working on editing Fever Blood, I'm writing up something else. Then, at the moment, it's called Chronoside Quartet, which is taking a complaint that Josh Young had when he was reading through the Wheel of Time and writing a story based off of that, which was the idea of cyclical time kind of making everything not have a sense of permanence, and everything that's done just becomes undone ad infinitum.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that to happen. I'm going to do something about that. Granted, killing time, in this case literally, is a bit more difficult than you'd think, so that's why it's a quartet as opposed to a standalone novel. That, and I can't write standalone novels for some reason.
I understand. I have that same problem.
In today's market, series seem to be what people are looking for, so it might be a feature, not a bug.
One. Yeah,
look at my problem. I tried to write a trilogy, and my editor had the first book cut into 4 books. So it's now going to turn into duodecalogy. It's going to be as long as Moth and Cobwebs. I'm writing 12-book stories. So you have my sympathy.
That's heaven for me. I'm just holding off on getting Fever Blood out the rapid fire like Nick Cole does.
Yeah, I think the rapid fire plan is a good one at the moment.
One thing, ladies and gentlemen, which I think is a great disciplinary tool, is to set yourself the task of writing a pulp 1 episode a week. Then come regular time, hell or high water, I crank out. I have one a week.
That's how I did it for Fever Blood.
What else? What other projects are? So far, I haven't missed a week in a year and a half.
Before we move on, Lou says, I killed time and dropped the body in the bayou. The gators did the rest.
Classic.
If that's a song, I don't get the reference.
No, I think it's just a reference to Killing Time that he was talking about.
Well,
but Lou's the guy who did it.
Put that in the Saturn Anthology.
My case.
Guys, I would have tried to sing the Bad Moon Rising song, but I would have killed the time.
The idea of a story about a guy trying to hide the body of time that he's killed for some reason.
Well, once every New Year's Day, don't they have a little baby time comes up and kills an old man, or is that just my version?
What the thing I'm writing?
Exactly.
For any of them.
I missed that you cut out right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that for Killing Time, like in your story, every New Year's they have a little baby show up and
murder the old man
and hide his body in the bayou and let the game.
Not exactly how it goes. It's got more explosions, and the other thing is the story's about gods and the people who kill them for a living. So.
Come on, old man, just go down easy. I got you, young whippersnapper. I've been around the block. So there's a great Robot Chicken sketch that's about Baby New Year killing people who don't keep their New Year's resolutions. And he goes, it's binding.
I'm reminded of the Krampus stories from Germany, where there's an evil Santa Claus that punishes the children who've been bad that year. It's like a horror
beats
figure.
them and kicks them.
Yeah, it beats them.
And we were just talking to a lady from Germany, and she hesitated and explained, well, they're not allowed to do that anymore, but because they would act it out. They used to actually hit and whip the kids.
So evil. Which anthology is Evil Baby? Do we submit Evil Baby New Year's
I think
stories
that'd be
into?
Saturn, yeah.
Well, not New Beginnings for Uranus?
I could do New Beginnings.
I need to get my Saturn story written. That has to do with time perception and stuff like that.
Good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Fun. But yeah,
So-
looking forward to getting David's stuff, and he's also hinted at his other labor of love earlier with some stuff with the space colonization thing.
Oh yeah, there may be in the distant thing after I'm finished with the action series. There's a series potentially based on space colonization. I'm going to try my hand at gritty, hard sci-fi. Not that the sci-fi itself will be gritty, but no magical drives, no magical technology, no weird particles.
Well, you did see that.
Don't actually. Mm-hmm.
You did see that article I threw in the Discord chat a while back about these guys coming up with a particle that has like negative mass or something.
Yeah, it'd be a neat trick. But until they do that,
they did.
Certain things remain insolvable.
Well, I think it means
I'll
until
review that.
it's usable.
I'm skeptical, but I'll review that.
I'll find it again for you, just for you.
Okay.
I could recommend the series about colonizing Jupiter by Isaac Arthur. In it has the fusion candles to use as engines to fly Jupiter and all its moons to another galaxy.
Ambitious.
Oh, Isaac
Galaxy?
I think it means solar system.
If you're looking for ideas for stories that have a hard science fiction bend to them, check out Science and Futurism by Isaac Arthur, a great YouTube channel. I'm about 50 episodes in. Highly recommended. Very fun.
Could you also, if you're recommending it, could you put a link in the chat when this goes live? When you post this?
Yeah, I can do that.
Since it's a recommendation, I mean, it's your...
John has stories where people fly gas giants around in slower than light travel.
Yeah, because there's lots of...
Well, the gas giants are self-aware. You don't want to mess with those gas giants.
All helium.
I know, right?
Yeah, but gas giants, look, gas giants are actually lightweight. If you dropped Saturn into an ocean, she would float because it's less dense than water.
I'm reasonably sure
other
we have
things that
super
would
intelligent
be a bit of a problem, but
ice giants that they show their holographic image shows up in a fur cape and an axe and a heroic beard.
I'm sorry, our solar system does not have any fire giants in it, but apparently some of the exoplanets are the size of Jupiter and closer to their primary than Mercury is. So there's these gigantic planets that have their huge, deep atmospheres blown out by the solar wind, which is not really wind, it's particles. But we don't have anything like that in this solar system. We don't have anything like that here.
Might be good for us.
The title interface would be a bit rough on us. Imagine our seasons would be interesting. But yeah, there's some astounding stuff out there.
so yeah, I'm doing some of the
Wow,
research
sci-fi.
because I'm writing up some science fiction stuff that starts out kind of hardish, then it goes kind of weird magical drive stuff, as you said. But that was the reference I made to Kepler 62e because I had a teacher in a creative writing class say you have to have a story set in a real place. I'm like, okay.
That was
Kepler 62e. It's real.
Corey, I salute the attempt because I set that as one of my goals for Count to Infinity, which just came out. All 6 volumes. I don't make up anything except for one thing I needed for my plot. Everything else, all the other astronomical wonders that I explain in the book are real astronomical wonders that really exist.
Was the only thing you made up?
The one thing I made
was the only thing you made up was making a diamond star made of antimatter.
The diamond star was made of antimatter rather than made of normal matter. Obviously, it couldn't possibly be made of antimatter. It's ridiculous. But of course, in the story, it's artificially created. But in real life, 50 light years away, there is a star that is composed of
degenerate
carbon diamond that's degenerate matter. It's a giant 1 zillion carat diamond that's on fire, hanging in space. For real, it's a real thing. So,
the greatest heist of all time in space.
Can't hear say again?
The greatest heist in all time in space.
Sure.
Taking the
where would you bring it?
Why not just
make
bring
out
it to M3? Isn't that what your main character does?
Yes, my main character brought it to
wife
M3.
steals it.
Yeah, she
Why then? Is it too late to submit a story for Mercury about a bridezilla that wants that for her wedding ring?
I'm going to have to go pretty soon now. I think it's about time for me to take off.
Well, for Venus. Yep.
But I want to thank everyone who's contributed for Mercury, and I want to thank anyone who is interested in buying Mercury, because you're in for an amazing journey.
And I'm sorry about being a bit late,
That's
David.
all right.
It's okay.
Well,
Wizard is
well,
a time
guys.
traveler is never late, nor is he early. He is always precisely on time.
Well, with David running off, shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, take care, David. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
Take
for all
care.
your work, David. And
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And Ben, Ben Zitsky, thank you very much for that wonderful,
Yes,
wonderful
Ben,
trailer. You know you've committed
It is
to doing
amazing.
one for each one now, right?
Yeah, I'm dreading trying to live up to this quality now. This is.
But, you know, like any planet he can't get to, we'll just change the name and put out the same cool video with the music from the appropriate planet. Of course,
There's no
It doesn't
theme
need
for
much,
Earth on the moon.
yeah, I was gonna say, what are we gonna do when we get to Pluto? I don't-
Half the planet does not cover only covers about half of them. So
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
But it gives us a start.
Good day, everyone.
See you later,
Yep.
David. All right.
Thank you for listening.
Well, on that note, everyone, shall we call it a day? Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it. And looks like we've got a big year with Superversive Press, with lots of new projects coming out, lots of things to read, and we'll be back at DragonCon this year if all goes well. Maybe we'll have ourselves a panel. But yes, Lou says, don't forget my collection. Lou, we've mentioned your collection that's coming out for Easter. A series of Lou's wonderfully Christian-themed science fiction that runs all over the place.
Sorry about that.
The weirdest one no, I won't give away any spoilers. We'll do an episode on we'll do an episode on Lou's. We'll see if we can get all of our Easter authors together for a live stream. Easter's on April 1st this year. I have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. Ash Wednesday is Valentine's Day and Easter is April 1st. You'd think that would be made up, you know, but it's true. It's really funny.
Lou's collection is called The Shadow of the Cross. So
Wow.
it's really good. They're really good stories. I enjoyed reading them.
And once again, post a link in the when this goes live to Lou's collection, so people can just click through and buy it.
We will, but we'll have a whole chat for that too.
Okay.
We've got to
I don't
finish
think
it.
that's out yet.
It's Easter.
We've got to
It's one of our
finish
3
it.
Easter books.
Lou should write more quickly.
Just to mention,
We
the
should
other
write
two,
more quickly.
the other two. So our Easter books are Lou, and I don't know the official title of it now, but it's basically Lou's Bar and Grill, which is confusing having 2 Lou's being released at the same time. But it's Frank Luke, who is I believe he's a Protestant minister. Anyway, he's written a series of stories, one for each of the deadly sins, about people who wander into a bar or a restaurant, it's different in each story, run by this mysterious Lou and his bartender Mo, and he has a pretty
waitress Sheila.
waitress, and it's Lucifer, and each person is tempted, and some go well and some go very, very badly. So that will be one of it's a series of 7 short stories. And then we also have something called Blessings and Trials, It's hard to describe, but think of it as something like Last Airbender meets Christian refugees in another world. It's really interesting. It's a fantasy, and it takes place. It's something I've never seen in a book before. It takes place in 3 different time periods at the same time. So some of the scenes are in the past or future of other scenes, and I thought it was done amazingly well.
Mm.
Yeah, we like Lucifer. So anyway, those 3 books will be coming out together at Easter.
Yes, it's going to be a big Easter. So much to
Definitely. Also, we should mention John C. Wright's latest book, Count to Infinity. I'm still on book 2 of that series, so I can't say anything about it yet.
Oh,
He mentioned earlier.
Scales are galactic.
I can say something. Count to Infinity is the most mind-blowingly vast science fiction book that I have ever read. And I read a lot of basic science fiction when I was young. But that feeling that you go to hard science fiction for, where you want to just encounter the vastness of the universe, that book does that better than any other book I've ever seen. So, if you like real science fiction,
I've read reads more like
shows you the wonder of things and how very, very vast the universe is, and then it's more vast, and then it gets more vast. That's the book for you.
I've got my friend reading it. I don't know if she's going to thank me or curse my name. Hopefully, thank me.
At least she doesn't end it in a cliffhanger.
Well, she will thank you because all the books are written now, and I've destroyed the universe, so there's no sequels.
I want to mention one more book that
one more
Superversive.
Oh, come on, everyone knows the universe is going to end sometime. That's not a spoiler.
I want to mention one last book that Superversive Press is putting out that we have not mentioned. I don't know. We don't have exactly our nailed down on the schedule yet, but sometime in the next few months. It's called Jake and the Dynamo.
Oh, yes.
And that's hilarious.
It's a magical girl novel. It's a novel about a young man who lives in a world where these magical girls from Japanese anime are real things, but boys don't have any power, and gets swept up into the struggles in life of these girls who are constantly called to fight monsters that attack the one remaining city in the world. And it's actually very funny. So we're excited about this one too.
We're excited about all of them.
Yeah. All good stuff coming.
Well, on that note, I think we'll call it a day. Oh, Ben mentioned Astounding Frontiers. I don't want to mention Astounding Frontiers because we had to close it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's sad. It didn't sell very well, so we've had to sort of go, this sucks a lot of time.
Yeah, well, that means that, we can finally publish Saraglio and the Sheik of Mars, as its own novel.
I'll be doing, go on, mention that, Ben, while you're at it. Well, that's also in the works.
And of course, I am incredibly biased towards my own things, but I consider it like the gem of Astounding Frontiers. Once we get out into a novel, it's great. A man's bride is taken from him on his wedding night on the plains of Red Mars, and he must invade the Saraglio of the Sheik of Mars to get her back. And along the way, he loses friends, gains allies in unexpected places, and duels on every reasonable thing I can think of.
That is a great recommendation for this.
Yes, that will be out later this year as well. We will be compiling that and putting that out later this year as well.
I'm still working on the Soul stuff, which is going a bit beyond just Daughter of Soul.
Cool. See, we've got books for years. It's going to be huge.
It
will.
So on that note, I'm going to stop the chat. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. Thank you, everyone, for participating. We'll talk to you actually in about a fortnight with another launch stream, because I think we're going to be doing a bunch of those this year. And we'll also have the usual Rambly streams as well. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.